Hey everybody, Coach BK. Functional nutrition. Hi. Functional nutrition chat, inflammation, video 2. We talked about what inflammation is. The PDF is going to be loaded, downloadable, printed out. It's going to have a lot of information, links, places to go to, and it's going to have this list. This is not a complete list of the most anti-inflammatory foods, and there might be some debate, like through the research, people are saying that red meat is inflammatory, and I sort of don't agree a little bit, but I do see the point, so we'll touch on that. But this list will be in the inflammation PDF shortly. So first and foremost, probably we just need to remember that the further away that the food is from the sun and not in balance or not in moderation, it's going to be inflammatory. Gut bacteria gets off, that's inflammatory. Too much of anything is going to be inflammatory. The amount of processing that something has can be inflammatory. I mean, heck, taking some vitamins that have a lot of lactose in them, and if you are sort of lactose intolerant, that can be inflammatory. The chemicals and all the stuff within our food and around our food and like microwaved with our food can be inflammatory. So our general way of functioning with our food industry is inflammatory. Okay? So we need to back up and look at processes within the body, how it's meant to be, and within our world, what's the best, cleanest way to live. So I have this phrase I've used for years, closer to the sun, less processed, and how you are meant to eat. So, a variety of fruits and vegetables, mostly vegetables, clean. Try to be organic to where the food actually is its own. That's how we turn the tide on the inflammatory crisis. So first food I want to bring up is dairy. We can debate if dairy is needed in the human population. I believe that Mother Nature builds stuff the way she thinks works best. And so you are different than a calf, obviously. And your stomach and your enzymes and how you are designed is different than a calf. So we weren't exactly designed to do this mass consumption of dairy. That's one thing. Dairy is inflammatory. This includes cheese. Dairy is inflammatory. Whey in middle or a lot consumption is inflammatory. Whey can be very inflammatory. Having leaky gut and eating dairy and whey can be more inflammatory than if you had good gut and eating whey. It's a double whammy there. Dairy is inflammatory. Half of it is we're just not designed to consume dairy. The other part of it is of the plethora of bullshit in the dairy. Seriously. Okay. And the meat. Enough. Clean. Closer to the sun. Try to get cleaner. Okay. Number 2 on their list, margarine and other fake foods. Your body doesn't know what to do with this. It looks at it like a pathogen or like a virus. Not like a virus exactly, but the point is that it doesn't know what to do with it, so it causes a sort of an immune inflammatory response. Lunch meats that are high in nitrate. These are inflammatory. trans fats are really inflammatory. We know we're not supposed to be eating trans fats. Those are highly inflammatory. They're difficult to process. Again, it causes kind of this immune inflammatory response because the body doesn't know what to do with it. And make sure that you understand that you can't just cook with olive oil and go on your merry way and heat stuff up and make smoke and think that that's healthy. If you overheat oil, you're making your own trans fats. Okay, so be cognizant of lower heat, and there's the heating point. I can't remember what that thing is called right now. Each oil has different, so that's something to be mindful of. Okay, alcohol is inflammatory. It's particularly stressful, strainful on the liver, and it falls into this, kind of goes into the sugar bucket. It has its own little special nuances, alcohol with the liver, but it goes into too much sugar, and that's inflammatory. Too much fructose and too much fruits, tropical fruits. And then if you're not eating organic and maybe a full ripe fruit, okay, it's not going to have everything that it's designed to have in it. And too much fruit, too much fructose is inflammatory. And fructose has its own special little nuances on why it's not good for you. Kind of similar to alcohol. It's a little stressful on the liver. Okay, vegetable oils are inflammatory. They're too high in omega-6, and so in your gut and all of that, the ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 is off. That is inflammatory, and that's probably why this list, or a lot of the research, and why we're still saying that red meat is inflammatory. It's because that balance of omega-3 and omega-6. It's not the red meat. If it was clean and well processed and not hormone and polluted, it's that ratio of omega-3 to omega-6. That's what's inflammatory. And then vegetable oil, again, just so far from the sun, highly processed. I think there's probably a mix of your body doesn't know what to do with it, doesn't have real good mechanisms for doing stuff with it because it's not exactly what you need, or just so far from that. It's not what you need. And it's too high in omega-6. Inflammatory. Food additives, preservatives, coloring, all that stuff, flavor stuff is inflammatory. It's probably, you could all go forward and say it's poisonous. Trans fats are poisonous too. So food additives are awful, and they are also touching in on triggering other things like in my history and knowing my children with dealing with ADHD type brain stuff, like the color red and some other colors trigger responses specific to the brain and cause weird stuff. Inflammatory and poisonous, causing Agave is inflammatory, especially for the liver. There's research been showing that agave linked to asthma and stuff like that. Okay. Too much of anything, we've already talked about that, can be inflammatory. Mostly probably because your body isn't able to get everything that it needs in balance, so the system gets off and then starts an immune response to too much stuff. Refined carbs. Further from the sun, refined carbs, an example would be they're missing fiber, or they're missing some of the nutrients that they need, and so the glycemic index is higher, and then the sugar response, which is inflammatory. Refined grains, similarly, they're missing stuff, and then, we've bastardized the food industry, so not only are you not getting things that it's designed to have, you're getting other stuff with it that's not needed or not wanted in there. So that's like a double whammy. Gluten's one of those. And the whole celiac thing has kind of made it muddy. You can have celiac. You can have gluten intolerance. You can have gluten insensitivity, or your system can be messed up such that maybe you have leaky gut, and we all have leaky gut, and then gluten becomes even more inflammatory. So sometimes it's not the gluten that's inflammatory, sometimes it is, and sometimes it's both. And so sometimes it's useful to help heal up the body and take out as much of the inflammation sources as possible. This is where they go to the elimination diets and eating really clean and stuff like that, of just taking gluten out. It's turning into a dairy, just really inflammatory. It's not a worthwhile food. We have overprocessed the hell out of it. It's not good for us. It's missing pieces, and it's everywhere. Okay, so those are the inflammatory foods that I wanted to cover today. The PDF, I'll upload that probably tomorrow, and a new version of it, and it'll have this list. So work to take those things out, and then crowd good in. Crowd good in. That would be vegetables mostly, fish oils, and whatnot. I eat Juice Plus. It's one of the biggest things that I do to combat inflammation. I'm thinking about doing a talk about that. It's something that I sell, and I try not to be salesy about it, but it's a fruit vegetable concentrate pill. So anytime you find good quality products that are fruit vegetable powders, nutrient dense, very easy to get to. Powders are easy to digest. You don't have to digest them, so it's an instant win. That's where you can get huge anti-inflammatory properties to kind of turn the tide on inflammation. And we all need to be doing it, all of us. So if you're not going to give up your beer, look at some of the list of where you can take things out and crowd get in. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Namaste.